Enjoyed the hour. Busy weekend plan for all of us.
Have a great weekend.
Yeah, have a good one.
See you Monday.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Well, good morning to you and welcome into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer and thanks for joining us on this Friday morning live on Fox Local, fox35orlando.com, and on YouTube. We appreciate you joining us, and we have a busy show ahead of us here, so we want to go ahead and jump right in, let you know what we have coming up for you. Later in the show, we're going to talk Final Four. The Florida Gators taking on Auburn on Saturday night in the Final Four in San Antonio, looking for a national championship. We will talk with Kevin Brockway, Florida Gators beat reporter for the Gainesville Sun, coming up in just a little bit. At 11:30, we're going to break down with a former detective and investigator about this the change in policy with the Orange and Osceola state attorney. Some tension now between the state attorney and the Orange County Sheriff when it comes to a change in policies and basically refusing to accept new non-arrest cases. So what does that mean? We will break all that down coming up at 11:30. In just a little bit, we're going to play for you the Attorney General of the United States, Pam Bondi, in Florida today, announcing some gang arrests in connection with cold case murders in South Florida. One of those arrests actually in our area. We'll have the details on that coming up in just a little bit. But the question right now, what to do with your 401k, those investments, because we know the stock market has not been looking good the past couple of days. Here's a live look right now. Actually, we know yesterday, according to the Wall Street Journal, the stock market lost $3.1 trillion in market value. The Dow was down, the NASDAQ was down, the S&P 500 was down. The largest one-day decline in market value since March of 2020. That obviously going back to COVID. So what to do? What do you do? What do you need to know? Joining us live now via Zoom is Joe Burt, who is a certified financial planner, the chairman and CEO of Certified Financial Group in Altamont Springs. And Joe, we really appreciate you joining us this morning here on Fox 35 News Plus.
Good to be with you, Garrett.
All right, so the first question I have for you right now, and that is, should people be worried right now?
Absolutely not. Yeah, this is typical market stuff. The problem that we've had, Garrett, is that things have been smooth for too long, and people forget that markets go up and down. And the market has been a little overpriced recently. You know, we all know what's going on with what we call the Magnificent Seven, which has run up the S&P dramatically in the last couple of years. But the market has been has been smooth for such a period of time. And when we run into some turbulence like we have right now, people think the world is coming to an end. But what's exacerbating it really right now is the tariffs and the uncertainty that those tariffs provide. That does not mean that the financial world is coming to an end, despite what some pundits might think.
So this reaction we're seeing right now, I mean, so far today, looking very much like yesterday started
Right.
as well. Do you expect this, even if these tariffs remain in place, do you expect the market to settle down and rebound at some point?
Without question, it always does this, regardless of what's going on in the world. Something unexpected occurs. Like look at COVID. I mean, that came out of the blue, and boom, we had that. And that was a situation where we thought the world was going to come to an end for all of us. And the markets do recover because these companies will continue to exist and they will come back. The worst thing that an investor can do right now is to bail out, because you don't have a loss until you sell. And that's for sure. And the worst thing you can do on top of that is try to time the market. People that are trying to figure out, is this a good time to get out, are making a big mistake. I can tell you it's a great time to be in. Though, as I said time and time again, the stock market is the only market that when things go on sale, people run out of the store. And this is the time to be buying. What we're doing for our clients right now is buying, and we're rebalancing their portfolios. We're selling what's been up, taking profits, and buying what's down. So when the market does correct, you've taken advantage of it. And that's what people need to do. But unfortunately, we're human beings, and we make emotional decisions instead of rational decisions.
What about folks who are pretty close to retirement, Joe? We're looking at those 401ks right now.
Sure. Yeah, we've got a lot of those. In fact, we have a lot of folks in retirement. The key to success long-term in investing and to get your money to grow is to have money set aside that you know that when the bills come up or you have things planned, you don't have to cash out of your investments. You shouldn't be 100% invested in stocks, particularly if you're at or near retirement. What you want to do is have a cash reserve. The typical bear market lasts less than 10 months. And what you want to have is cash reserve. So when you need cash, you're not selling your investments when they're down, because they do recover. And that is really the key to success. You don't want to sell when things are down, and you want to have cash reserves. The mistake I think some people make is they're either all fully invested or they're not invested at all.
Is the advice any different for folks who maybe aren't close to retirement right now but have a long road ahead of them?
Sure. The advice is buy. These are great buying opportunities, because you'll look back 3-5 years from now and say, geez, I wish I would have got in. I mean, look at what happened during the pandemic. How many people ran from the sidelines and never did get back in? That was the time. That was the time to buy. If you believe the world will continue to evolve, and people will continue to need cars, people will continue to need washing machines and tires and computers and Apple phones and all the things that we buy, and they need food, all the things that make the world go round. If you think that demand will continue to be there, you want to own that stuff. And this is the opportunity to buy it. The worst thing you can do is to sell when things are down. Don't look at your 401k statement. Don't be looking at your investment account. If you're managing yourself, this is the time to be buying stuff and not selling.
We hear talks and some fears from some corners about a possible recession heading this way. What do you make of that, and what preparations should investors or people make thinking about the possibility of that?
Well, I remember it wasn't too long ago, a couple of years ago, we were talking about a recession. And the question was it going to be a hard landing, a soft landing, or whatever? It appears we had no landing at all. So, the pundits will always have something to say. It's opportunity to sell airtime and to get people to tune in like they do to this program. And I understand it. But believe me, I don't buy into that. If you're well diversified with quality investments, in the long run, you're going to be fine. What you don't want to do is be speculating. And I think people need to understand, Garrett, there's a difference between investing and speculating. Investing is a long term, and I'm talking about a period of 3 to 5 or the rest of your life. Speculating is what you're going to do on a day-to-day, month-to-month, minute-by-minute basis, which some people do on their phone. That's pure speculation. That's totally different than what most people should be doing and what we do for our clients. When we work with our clients, it's having a plan and deciding how we're going to get there with quality investments that are diversified over time.
So just bottom line it for us, Joe, what you're telling your clients right now when they ask you these same questions.
Bottom line is I'm telling them this is the opportunity. If you have cash sitting on the side, we want to get it to work now. Get it in the market when things are down. Unless you think the world is coming to an end. If you think that's the case, you got to take your money and bury it in the backyard. I have a saying, Garrett, that if dieting and investing were easy, we'd all be skinny and rich. And investing is not easy because we're emotional and we make those emotional decisions. And that's why, unfortunately, most people are poor investors. You can't let the emotions overtake you. If you believe that the world will continue to evolve, it's never a smooth straight line. It never has been, never will be. And this is the bitter pill that we take to get good long-term returns. We got to accept the fact that there will be times when we have this kind of stuff. Ignore it. Don't look at it. And you'll look back in maybe a month, even a year or 2 years. And as I said, if you need your money in the short term, you ought to not have everything invested. Have some money in cash so you don't have to sell when things are down. It's not that complicated.
Yeah, good advice. Great advice, Joe. Joe Burt, certified financial planner and the chairman and CEO of Certified Financial Group in Altamont Springs. We really appreciate your advice and appreciate you joining us this morning here on Fox 35 News Plus.
Thank you, Garrett. Good to be with you.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Friday morning. U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi was in South Florida this morning. She was with FBI Miami, the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of Florida, and the Broward County Sheriff's Office. She was announcing that investigators have solved 4 homicides that she says were tied to MS-13 gang activity, also announcing federal murder charges against several MS-13 gang members. One of those arrests was actually here in Central Florida in Lake County. I want to play for you a bit of that news conference. We're going to hear from Dr. Gregory Toney, who's the Broward County Sheriff, and also from Pam Bondi, the former Florida Attorney General, now U.S. Attorney General, announcing these charges and the gang connections.
Folks, for several years now, this community has witnessed me stand here and talk about the importance of executing investigations regardless of how long ago they occurred. And the crimes that we talk about, or going to talk about today, took place back in 2014 through 15. And had it not been for the efforts of our cold case unit, which we launched back in 2019, and their ability to dig into these cases and no longer see boxes in hallways and dismiss the fact that these are victims, these are people, these are members of someone's loved one or family that are no longer here. And so today, as the Attorney General introduces her team and talk about the success that we have in this case, I want this community to remember Here in Broward County, justice doesn't have an expiration date. It doesn't matter when you committed the crime. It doesn't matter what part of this world you are from. If you come here in this community and decide that you're going to take a life, we're going to unleash every single resources to bring you to justice. So without further ado, allow me to introduce our U.S. Attorney General, Pam Bondi.
Thank you, Sheriff. Thank you, Sheriff. I feel like I'm back home being here in Broward. To our victims' families first, we met with them earlier. Thank you for being here, and we're so sorry. And as Sheriff Tony said, your family was not, your victim was not just sitting there in a box of papers. They are a victim, and that's why they have spent a decade finding some of these people who have killed your loved ones. So we're very sorry for your loss, and I know you have to relive this, and thank you for being here today. We're so sorry you're going through this. Sheriff Tony, thank you for your relentless pursuit of justice in these cold cases. And these cases are never cold when it comes to law enforcement. And I want to also thank Hayden O'Byrne. Where's Hayden? Our acting U.S. attorney for the Southern District, and Brett Skiles, our SAC for the special agent in charge for the FBI, and to all the great men and women of the Broward County Sheriff's Office. We're our Border Patrol agents, all of our agents who are here who have done so much to help. Thank you all to the men and women, especially of Broward, and our victims advocates, our interpreters who have helped with this case. It takes a lot of people to make these cases, and they're so very, very important. And today we're here to announce the arrest of 3 more MS-13 gang members who were in this country illegally, and they were in Florida, and we will be reviewing them. They've all been arrested for first-degree murder. We will be reviewing them to see if we will seek the death penalty. This has been a long-running investigation that started in 2015. The victim in this case was brutally murdered, stabbed approximately 100 times by multiple gang members before he was shot in the head. He suffered tremendously. And these indictments are a warning to all criminals. We don't care how long ago you committed the crime. We don't care where you go. We will find you, we will arrest you, and we will prosecute you to the fullest extent of the law. Gamez Maravilla was located in Lake County, Florida. Get ready for this. He was hanging drywall at the Villages when he was arrested. Bermudez Martinez was apprehended in Minnesota. Great police work by all of our federal, state, and local law enforcement agencies working together. Found this guy in Minnesota. He thought he got away with this crime, and he did not. Navarro Martinez arrested right here in North Lauderdale. They are charged with a brutal murder of a young man. One of these defendants sought him out, convinced him to come with him in his car, took him to a crime scene where they are all charged with violently stabbing him, almost like a game, to get a higher level in their gang initiation. They were all part of an MS-13, it's called Click, a clique that was living right here in Florida. They're not just a street gang, they are a highly organized terrorist organization. Last week in Virginia, you all saw, we arrested one of the worst MS-13 gang members. He was one of the top 3 leaders of MS-13 in our entire country. He was living right in Virginia, half an hour away from DC, in a nice apartment complex with normal neighbors, bicycles in yards. They are living among us because they think they can get away with this, and they cannot. They're bringing drugs, they're bringing guns, and especially violence to our country. And under Donald Trump's presidency, that has stopped. Every 7 minutes, an American dies of a drug overdose. Over 75,000 people die a year of fentanyl overdoses. More than 2 homicides an hour happen in America. We know there is so much more work to be done, and that's why we are all here fighting for victims of crime. These gangs are organized, they are terrorists, and look at these 3 guys. They thought they got away with it for almost a decade, but they did not. Thanks to the great men and women of law enforcement, they were found, they were arrested, and if convicted, they will never see the light of day again. More arrests are coming. If you are a gang member living in this country, I'd self-deport right now because we're coming after you.
And strong words from the U.S. Attorney General Pam Bondi at that news conference in Broward County just a little bit ago. Going to take a break here on Fox 35 News Plus, but we will be right back after this.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Friday morning live on Fox Local, fox35orlando.com, and on YouTube. There's some tension today between the state attorney Monique Worrell for Orange and Osceola counties and the Orange County Sheriff's Office. This comes after the news conference yesterday where the state attorney, Monique Worrell, said that she wants arrest warrants before law enforcement sends cases to her office. Now, Sheriff John Mina of Orange County said in a statement that he doesn't support this move. Fox 35's Amanda McKenzie has the details.
That's right. So the Orange County Sheriff's Office says they even asked that the policy be paused, but that request was denied. Now the change adds a step into the process for deputies before they can make an arrest, which could prolong getting a wanted person off the streets. The state attorney's office now requires law enforcement to make an arrest or issue a court notice before submitting cases for prosecution. In a statement from the Orange County Sheriff's Office, the agency says, quote, "We are not supportive of the policy in its current form as it could deny prosecution in some domestic violence and firearms cases and deny justice to some victims of those crimes. To ensure the safety of our residents and visitors, the Orange County Sheriff's Office intends to continue sending misdemeanor non-arrest cases to the state attorney's office when appropriate." State Attorney Monique Worrell says her office is handling more than 13,000 non-arrest cases out of more than 45,000 active cases. She says the backlog was created because arrest cases receive priority, leaving non-arrest cases on the back burner.
What this does is it delays justice for our victims. It delays justice for the community, and it's an unnecessary cog in the wheel of justice. So in order to address this situation, I am at this time, and as of April 1st, we are no longer accepting non-arrest cases in most circumstances. We are asking and enthusiastically looking forward to collaborating with our law enforcement partners to build the best cases possible so that when that case comes into our office, we can get right to prosecuting it and delivering justice for the community.
Florida's Republican Attorney General James Uthmeier weighed in late last night in a post on X, writing, quote, "Soros-backed prosecutors do not have the right to put Floridians at risk," and that he would use his supervisory authority over the state attorney's office to review the policy and its impact on public safety. Now, the new policy went into effect this week. Fox 35 has also reached out to other law enforcement agencies within Orange and Osceola counties and are waiting to hear back.
Coming up at 11:30, we're going to speak with Jamie Copenhaver, who is a former detective and investigator with the Orange County Sheriff's Office. We're going to talk about the impact of this, kind of what this means, what this will look like going forward. So that's coming up in just a few minutes here on Fox 35 News Plus. I want to give you a live look now. This is from SpaceX. They're in the Pacific Ocean awaiting the splashdown of the From 2 mission. The crew that has been flying for nearly 4 days in a polar orbit, getting ready to splash down in less than an hour. 12:19 is that expected splashdown time. We will bring that to you live here on Fox Local. Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner joins me now. And Brooks, happy Friday to you. How's that weekend forecast looking?
Amen to that. Well, it's going to be a weekend forecast, Garrett, featuring more hot weather. In fact, it'll be the hottest we've seen this past week, with Sunday highs reaching the lower to middle 90s. So it's really going to be the peak of the heat before we start to see some big changes coming our way. Let's get you set up for the weekend. After today's high around 90 in Orlando and 92 in Bushnell, we'll see low to mid 80s at the beaches. Tomorrow, much the same, highs around 90. But we're going to top out right about 93 to 95 on Sunday. It is going to feel like summer. And you know how they say it's always darkest before the dawn? Well, oftentimes it's always hottest before the cold front. And we've got a cold front right now, which is strewn across the Mid-South and parts of the Midwest, bringing more severe weather, and this time a lot of flooding. Yeah, so this is the one that brought all of that really devastating severe weather earlier this week to parts of the Mississippi River Valley. Today that threat extends down through Texarkana in northeast Texas, up through Arkansas, and into Missouri, Illinois, and Indiana. More tornadoes, more large hail, and what could be an additional 8 to 10 inches of rain, adding to their already copious totals that have resulted in widespread and in some cases pretty devastating flooding. So it's a really bad situation there. The reason for this bad weather is that the warm Gulf air is surging northward, bumping into the cooler spring air to the north coming out of Canada and out of the Rocky Mountains. And there's a battleground where it all squeezes out right overhead, and it's just been sitting there for days with nothing changing that pattern. Well, finally, we're going to have enough of a push and a weakening high pressure zone over Florida to allow this front to make it in. That storm energy and the winds will, in fact, make it into Florida as we get into early next week after a hot and dry weekend. On Monday evening, there's going to be a small window, Garrett, where we might see a couple of isolated severe thunderstorms in that orange shaded area encompassing our Florida Atlantic coast. Flagler, Volusia, Brevard counties point south. And the reason is that our surface winds in red will be out of the south-southeast, with the upper level winds, which are in green and blue, out of the west-southwest. So that change in direction with height will lead to air rotating as it rises. And there's a chance that if we get a storm, and that's a big if, there's about a 30% chance, if we get a storm Monday between about 4 and 8 p.m., it could be severe. There may even be a brief tornado, although most of the rain looks like it's going to hold to the west on Monday. Now, Monday night, the rain will finally roll in, this cold front making its way into central Florida. And in doing so, Tuesday is going to be a dreary day with periodic showers during the morning, and during the afternoon, we may see an enhancement in its intensity. We'll start to catch some downpours, maybe even some rumbles of thunder. But because the wind is all going in the same direction, it's called unidirectional, from the ground all the way to the top of the atmosphere, there's really not much of a severe weather threat, but this would lend to a heavy rain threat. So we're calling Tuesday a Fox 35 Weather Impact Day in anticipation of weather that could impact outdoor plans. Like if you have construction work outside, a field trip planned, get ready for, it looks like a lot of rain. We'll know more as we get a little bit closer to it, but I want to give you that advanced planning while today's Friday to look ahead to next Tuesday. Until then, a dry weekend and really hot. The good news with the rain coming in on Tuesday is that it's going to usher in a much cooler air mass, weather that's more typical for this time of year with upper 70s and low 80s. And I think that's welcome news for a lot of us that think this hot weather is a little bit too early in its arrival.
Right, not ready for it quite this early in April, so at least we are going to get a little bit of a break from it, and that may, be good for us, I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's going to be good running weather, that's for sure.
All right, I love hearing that. Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner, we appreciate you joining us.
Always a pleasure, Garrett. Have a great weekend.
And as we go to break here, here's a live look at Daytona Beach from our Hard Rock Hotel camera on this Friday morning. Looks like a lot of folks out and about already. It is a hot one. So thanks for joining us on Fox 35 News Plus. We'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Friday morning. Tension between State Attorney Monique Worrell in Orange and Osceola counties and Orange County Sheriff John Mina over Worrell's position that she doesn't want to accept many non-arrest cases, wants an arrest warrant or citation with a case before it is sent to her office because of a backlog, she says, in those cases. Now, we know the Sheriff's Office in Orange County says they do not support this move. So joining us live now to talk about this and the impact of it is James Copenhaver, a former sheriff's detective and investigator. And James, we appreciate you joining us this morning here on Fox 35 News Plus.
Garrett, it's great to be with you.
So first, talk to me about what this means and what impact we could see from this.
Yeah, let's start with the impact. I think it's going to impact the citizens. I think it's certainly going to impact our law enforcement officers, whether it's the Sheriff's Office, OPD, or other, on this decision coming from the state attorney. I'm just not certain if the budget is the issue on understaffing, because my first question would be, okay, if we don't have the budget to take on these extra cases of misdemeanor arrest, maybe she needs to go see the legislature and the governor to get her budget increased.
So from an investigator's standpoint, you hear from the prosecutor that they're not going to accept these non-arrest cases, that they want arrest warrants before those cases are sent to her office. Practically, what does that look like for law enforcement, and what more or what needs to be done differently from that perspective?
I mean, as the policy stands now, that I understand the policy, you're essentially handcuffing our police officers. You know, I've responded to these calls for years to where it was a misdemeanor call. You arrive on the scene, Garrett, and the bad guy or the suspect is gone. But, you know, it doesn't negate the part that the crime was actually committed. You know, the bad guy just beat the police out of the scene. So, you know, it's going to impact, I think, our crime. I think our crime rates and stats are going to go up if you have less prosecutions for a misdemeanor. You know, misdemeanor or felony, it's still a crime. But here's the real takeaway. And I'm going to give you a hypothetical. If we all know what we know, the porch parrots, right? You know, you leave a package out on your porch. The bad guy comes and steals your Amazon package, right? What's going to occur with those victims? The bad guy is not going to sit there and wait on the police, but they have video in most cases to where they have a good identification or a good picture of the bad guy. And a lot of times these cops go out and follow up and identify those bad guys and make an arrest. So, you know, how many citizens is this going to affect on this non-arrest issue for a misdemeanor as it just pertains to one item, which is theft? So I think it's going to increase the crime. If I may, I'll give you another scenario. If you're in Orange or Osceola County or outside the county and you're a bad guy and you hear this policy, the first thing you're going to do is run into those two counties, commit that theft or commit those misdemeanor crimes, and you're safe as long as you're not there when the police gets there. So I think it's opening the door for an array of problems.
Can you give us kind of an idea of the sort of cases where getting an arrest warrant could be difficult? And some of those cases, I know you touched on a situation there, but one of these situations where that we could see a difference in this, that maybe wouldn't be picked up, but because of the difficulty in getting an arrest warrant.
You know, let's just go to the bars and nightclubs, right? We all like to go drink, and we have a lot of tourists that goes and partakes in these nightclub activities. Inadvertently, someone gets into an argument that escalates into a physical fist fight. So, you know, a lot of times this fight will ensue, it'll occur, it'll happen, and then what happens? The bad guy generally that's at fault will run out of the club or the bar and flee the scene. You know, we have some very capable cops in Orange and Osceola County, and what they do is they'll go out and, you know, they're going to get the club video, run this person through David. There's so many avenues for those deputies to identify the bad guy who fled the scene, to identify him after the fact, if you will. And, you know, so what does that tell me? The state attorney is not going to accept basically those deputies, you know, the investigation of identifying the bad guy who fled. And, you know, a battery case is going to go unpunished, if you will.
We saw a statement from the sheriff's office saying that they they still intend to send these cases when they feel they are appropriate. From the perspective of the sheriff, why do you think they don't support this move?
I don't think the sheriff or any law enforcement leaders can accept this policy. Like I said, it's going to put handcuffs on their troops or their cops. And here's something else too. Let's just look at the morale issue with these agencies. So now you're a sworn law enforcement agent or officer. You're sworn by the Constitution to uphold the Constitution and the laws, but yet you're being told by the state attorney, hey, I'm sorry, we can no longer accept these cases in a misdemeanor element because of a staffing issue. The morale in these agencies are going to say, well, you know what, if she doesn't care, why should I? Why should I go to the extra effort if the case is not going anywhere? So I think it's going to be a morale issue with these deputies and cops. I also think it's going to be an issue with potential funding with these agencies because their crime rates are going, the stats are going to go up, Garrett. They're going to be less arrests, but the same amount of calls for these crimes.
Just to push back for a minute here, if the backlog is as bad as the state attorney's office says it is, then the reality is many of these cases are not being prosecuted anyway, at least not in a timely manner. So how do you respond to that kind of practical state of things if that backlog is that bad?
I mean, the state attorney's office has always been backlogged. I mean, you can get any attorney defense or a state attorney on, and they're going to tell you the cases are backlogged. The sheriff's office is backlogged. We're all backlogged, right? But what the state attorney needs to address is her budget and her expenditures. Is she expending monies where she shouldn't be expending monies to hire more lawyers to prosecute these cases? She's not a stranger to conflict. We recall her first term when Governor DeSantis removed her from office. If just me personally, Garrett, if I was the sheriff or a chief of police, I think the first thing I would do is continue sending these cases for prosecution. The second thing I would do, I would be pen to paper with a letter wanting an appointment with the governor to discuss it with the governor's office. Because face it, we're a tourism town, and we can't afford these crime stats to go up and people being unpunished. What signal is that sending to potential tourists that are coming here to vacation?
And you mentioned the governor. We did, who obviously removed her from office before. We saw a tweet last night from the Attorney General basically saying that as Attorney General, he has supervisory authority of her office and that he is going to review her policies and their impact on public safety. So where do you think things go from here?
I was hoping you wouldn't ask that, but I'm going to give you my honest assessment. I truly think with this new Attorney General, he's brand new in the office. He's not new to the administration, but he's new to the AG's office. We certainly know where Governor DeSantis stands on this. And I truly think that the state attorney is going to once again fall victim to her own policies. And I truly look for a letter, number one, from the governor's office and the AG's office. Hey, by the way, you need to reassess this. You need to change the policies. We're pro-arrest on misdemeanors and felonies. And I truly believe that she's setting herself up for another conflict with the governor and could possibly be removed once again. I mean, that would be the high-risk scenario, but I think it's very possible, Garrett, that he would remove her.
All right, going to be something to watch closely in the coming days and weeks. James Copenhaver, former sheriff's detective and investigator, always appreciate your perspective, and thanks for joining us this morning here on Fox 35 News Plus.
Thank you, Garrett.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
Welcome back into Fox 35 News Plus. I'm Garrett Wymer, and thanks for joining us on this Friday morning, live on fox35orlando.com, Fox Local, and on YouTube. We reported yesterday about Colorado State University releasing their outlook for the upcoming hurricane season. They have predicted what they call an above-average hurricane season, but thankfully not quite as active as last year. They're calling for 17 named storms, 9 hurricanes, and 4 major hurricanes. Now, earlier today, Fox 35 Storm Team meteorologist Brooks Garner spoke with one of the CSU researchers to peel back the curtain on how those predictions come about and some of the science behind hurricane forecasting.
What are some of the takeaways from this busier than normal season? What are some of the contributing factors to make it yet another busy season? And let me just add, you guys nailed the forecast last year. Good job.
Thank you for having me. It is always really exciting to be here. So this year we're looking at the 2 main factors, which are the sea surface temperatures that we're seeing in the Atlantic at this moment. And we also take a look at the ENSO state, or El Nino, La Nina, or neutral base state. And in this year specifically, La Nina is weakening, and that will be a transition towards neutral. And La Nina and neutral states do benefit the Atlantic activity, the Atlantic hurricane activity. So that is what we have, and that with the warmer sea surface temperatures are going to be favorable.
So the warm sea surface temperatures are still there. That's the fuel for the fire, the gasoline, if you will, for the engine. And you mentioned this El Nino Southern Oscillation, the ENSO, and that's the warming, the cooling, or the declaration of everything being normal down there in the eastern equatorial Pacific off of Ecuador. And a lot of people are thinking, well, why would the ocean temperature off of Ecuador in the Pacific influence the Atlantic hurricane season? And it's all about the wind. Can you tell us about the wind in an El Nino versus a La Nina? You mentioned that we're kind of going to be in the middle this year.
Yeah, so I will talk a little bit of how it influences the Atlantic. But when we are in a La Nina or in a neutral state in the Pacific, it all affects the steering patterns and the winds and the circulations down here in the Atlantic. It is far, but it does influence. So it tends to weaken the Azores high, or the subtropical high that we have in the Atlantic. And this weakens what we have, or what we know as the trade winds, or those strong winds that are affecting the Atlantic, which they tend to weaken or disrupt the hurricanes as they make their way from Africa, that way that makes its way from Africa towards the U.S. But this year, since that high tends to be weakening, we can see those strong waves coming out of the coast of Africa to make its way closer to the U.S. and recurve closer to Florida.
Okay, so that's significant. So with lower trade winds, we can get systems that will form, but more applicably to where these systems go during a neutral season when the water temperature off of Ecuador is kind of normal, that tends to steer these systems closer to Florida potentially, right?
Correct. And we saw last year, an example is when we had the La Nina-based state, Florida was impacted with 3 major hurricanes, which is a high number.
That's significant. And I noticed a specific in the Colorado State University forecast that our coastline here on the Atlantic side of Florida, specifically Flagler, Volusia, and Brevard, stand about a 5% higher chance of experiencing a hurricane this year than in a typical year.
Mm-hmm. Correct. And one of the predictors that we also look at, and one of our main parameters, is tracking storms and their accumulated cyclone energy west of 60 degrees. And in this year, we have an ACE of 93 west of 60, which that is higher than normal.
All right, so accumulated cyclone energy, warmer than normal temperatures, steering currents that might take it to Florida. Anjali Nieves Jimenez from Colorado State University. You're not painting a very optimistic picture, but we can't make that choice either. We appreciate the prognostication.
It just takes one.
It just takes one. Well, we appreciate the forecast, and that's what we need to prepare. If we know it's coming, we can at least psychologically get ready for it. We're a little less than 2 months away from the hurricane season, and we'll look for your updated Colorado State University come mid-June with the latest. Thank you so much for your time this morning.
Rex.
We're going to take a break, and we'll be right back.
You're watching Fox 35 News Plus, streaming on Fox Local.
A live look right now at San Antonio, Texas. The skyline there. The Florida Gators are in town. It is Final Four weekend. The Gators taking on the Auburn Tigers on a Saturday night. It's their 6th Final Four appearance. They are looking for their 3rd national championship. And I spoke with Kevin Brockway, Florida Gators beat reporter for the Gainesville Sun, about what it's going to take for the Gators to bring home that championship.
Yeah, Florida arrived last night. They had their first practice this morning, Garrett, and yeah, they seem very loose, relaxed. We went into the locker room for the open media sessions. Walter Clayton Jr. was playing Madden with some teammates. They were chanting DJ Lagway. I think it was a Florida-Miami game on the video game board. And I think players appeared very confident, especially for a lot of people that are here for the first time. Of course, Elijah Martin, who played at FAU a couple of years ago, transfer, does have Final Four experience. So does assistant Torian Green, but that's it. Everyone else is kind of green, brand new to this big stage, but they seem to be handling it okay so far.
They probably should be confident. They've really played some tough games and come out on top.
Yeah, and Garrett, they've shown that comeback gene, right? First in the round of 32 game against UConn, where they came back from down 8, then Texas Tech, where they came back from down 10 and down 9 in the last 4 minutes. I think that's brought them closer together. I think that's made this an even more tighter knit group, which I think could serve them well when they face Auburn on Saturday night. If they're facing another deficit like that, they can kind of draw from those experiences.
Let's talk about Walter Clayton Jr., because how good has he been in this tournament, and how good does he need to be if the Gators are going to keep this going?
Yeah, well, he's raised his draft stock for sure. I think he's up from 58 to 35 on most mock draft boards in the NBA draft. So this stage has served him well, but more importantly, it served Florida well in terms of his ability to lead his team back from any kind of deficit. I mean, the kid's got ice in his veins. We kind of saw that late in the Texas Tech game. Wasn't afraid to take those shots late after struggling, earlier in the day, and he made them. He made some big ones. He made some contested ones. He's the guy that kind of makes this engine go. But they also had 6 guys scoring double figures against Maryland too. So they've shown the ability to be unselfish and to get some other contributions. Tommy Houck is the guy I think that has really stepped up. Alex Condon kind of sprained his ankle a little bit, and he came back and he played in the Maryland game, and he played in the Texas Tech game, but maybe not at 100%. We talked to him in the locker room. He said he's feeling better and feeling good to go. So maybe we'll see a different version of Alex Condon in the Final Four as well.
Now break down this matchup for us against Auburn, because we know they're a tough team. They're a great team. They've got some studs, Janai Broom. I mean, what do the Gators need to do to beat the Tigers?
Well, Florida beat them the first meeting, 90-81. So they come in with a little bit of confidence in that game. They made 13 3-pointers in that game. So I think shooting will be one of those keys. Auburn's going to go down in the perimeter and defend very well. But for Florida, it comes down to getting off to good starts, defending really well. Janai Broom is a handful in the post, but Alex Condon did a really good job on him the first meeting, single coverage. I mean, Broom got 18 points, but he went 8 of 19 from the floor. To do it was very inefficient. So, Auburn's got a lot of strengths, but they're also prone to taking bad shots here and there, and that can allow teams to hang around. And we have seen, Florida can keep it close in the last 4 or 5 minutes. They have a lot of confidence in their ability to close games out.
Yeah, and as we talked about, they certainly should after their road to get here. So what do you see happening on Saturday night? Give us your prediction.
I predicted 88-83 Florida. I think it's going to be an up-tempo, up-and-down game, a lot of fun to watch. But there's something about this Florida team it's hard to bet against, particularly Walter Clayton Jr., and I think the other firepower on the perimeter. Certainly, Elijah Martin was also a guy that did not play in that first game. He had a hip issue. Denzel Aberdeen stepped up in that first game. But now you have all 4 of those guys available. Urban Clavshar off the bench too. I think Florida's depth will play a factor in this game and ultimately help them come out on top.
Now let's look at the other side of the bracket real quick, because if Florida does come out on top, they'll be playing either the winner of Houston or Duke. Is there any way Duke doesn't win that game? I know Houston's a good team, but Duke's tough.
Well, Houston's a tough defensive team. Kelvin Sampson's a very good coach, and there could be a home crowd factor here. Obviously, it's in their home state, so they're going to have a lot of fans here. So I think for Duke, it's just a matter of them, getting off to a good start and not letting the crowd come in and be a factor in the game. But Duke will be favored. Cooper Flagg is the real deal. 6'9" guy that can do just about everything, handle, pass, shoot, you name it, and is playing at a high level and playing with a lot of confidence. So I think that's going to be a tall order for Houston, but they've got a shot with Kelvin Sampson. They're a very good defensive team. They can shut you down.
Yeah, we have seen that. What matchup would be better for the Gators in a hypothetical national championship game?
It's a good question. I think Houston would probably be a little better because I think Duke has more firepower. But I think either one, Garrett, will be tremendously tough. I think it's just going to be, obviously you get to this level, there are no easy matchups, I think, overall. It's just, you've got 4 teams here, especially the fact that they're 4 number 1 seeds. These are teams that are battle-tested, they're proven. And they've got, I would say of the 4, Houston has the most grinded out kind of physical style, but maybe not the firepower of the other 3 teams.
So we will see what happens on Saturday night in San Antonio. Those games being played at the Alamo Dome again, 6:09 p.m. Eastern Time. That is a tip-off for the Florida Gators and the Auburn Tigers. We are still standing by, awaiting a splashdown of the From-2 mission, the private polar flight that has been in space for about 4 days now, getting ready for that at 12:19. So we will, starting at noon, bring that to you live here on Fox Local. We'll have coverage of that you will be able to watch that and see that, again, splashing down in the Pacific Ocean here shortly. You see SpaceX doing their coverage here and their kind of mission control there as well as they get ready for that. A lot of interest in this mission. We talked about it earlier this week with some of our space experts. You can find those full interviews about what went on with this mission, the importance of it, the takeaways kind of going forward as well, the implications, the impact on future missions. You can find that right now on Fox Local and fox35orlando.com. That is going to do it for us here on Fox 35 News Plus on this Friday morning. We appreciate you joining us. We hope you join us again at 2 p.m. for Florida Live. We are going to we're going to take you inside the southern white rhino encounter at Zoo Tampa. Really exciting opportunity there. We're going to have a live interview with them coming up at 2:40 here on Fox Local. We're also going to be talking the science behind the torpedo bats that are all the rage, all the discussion in Major League Baseball right now. So that's looking ahead to 2. We hope you join us on YouTube and on Fox Local. But again, we're going to wrap up Fox 35 News Plus, and we'll be back at noon with SpaceX splashdown coverage.